My day had started like any other, at least. That's what I thought when I dragged myself out of bed, bleary-eyed and tired. My name is Ethan Rivera, and I work in a small, quiet office that doesn't offer much excitement. The walls are bare, the fluorescent lights above flicker from time to time, and the hum of computers fills the air like white noise. It's the kind of place where time seems to stand still. But recently, something was starting to change. I was staring at my computer screen, barely able to concentrate, when I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps coming from the hall. It was Lucas Johnson, our office manager. His footsteps were always a little louder than everyone else's. The guy practically stomps when he walks, but it's not something anyone minds. Lucas is a good guy. He's been here for as long as I have, maybe longer, and we've always gotten along. Still, something about his sudden appearance at my desk this morning made me uneasy. Ethan. Lucas greeted me, his voice carrying that calm authority he always managed to keep. I need you to handle something for me today. It's important. I looked up at him, my brows furrowing. This wasn't like Lucas to ask me to take on something crucial at the last minute. Sure, what's going on? I replied, trying to hide my curiosity. His eyes met mine, and for a second, I noticed something strange flicker behind a brief flash of uncertainty. But it was gone just as quickly as it appeared. It's a package, he said, glancing over his shoulder as if making sure no one was around to hear. I need you to take it to the warehouse. It's sensitive. Sensitive? I repeated, unsure of what that meant. We dealt with packages all the time, but nothing about this seemed normal. Yeah, just get it there before the end of the day. Don't ask too many questions, okay? My curiosity only deepened, but I didn't press him. If Lucas was being this cryptic, it was likely for a reason. I nodded. Got it. I'll leave after lunch. Lucas looked like he wanted to say more, but instead, he simply gave me a sharp nod and walked off. I watched him go, a knot tightening in my stomach. Something didn't sit right about this. The morning passed in a blur as I tried to focus on my tasks, but my mind kept drifting back to Lucas and the mysterious package. What was so important about it? Why did he seem so anxious? My questions mounted, but the answers weren't coming. By the time lunch arrived, I decided to take the package and deliver it as instructed. The warehouse wasn't too far, just a quick drive across town. When I arrived, I was met by a guard at the gate who checked my ID before allowing me inside. The place was larger than I expected, with rows upon rows of stacked crates and boxes. It smelled like metal and oil, the air thick with the hum of forklifts and the clatter of crates being moved. I found the office where I was supposed to drop off the package tucked in the back corner of the warehouse. The door was open, and inside there was a man sitting at a desk, scribbling something on a piece of paper. He looked up when I entered. You must be Ethan, he said with a smile, though his eyes seemed unusually cold. I was expecting you. Yeah, I stammered. Lucas sent me with this. I handed over the package, but the man didn't immediately take it. Instead, he eyed me for a moment before standing up and moving toward a safe in the corner of the room. This isn't just any regular delivery, Ethan, the man said, his tone suddenly serious. Do you know what you've brought me? I shook my head. No, Lucas didn't tell me much, just that it's sensitive. The man paused, his hand on the safe's dial, and gave me a sharp look. Sensitive, huh? That's one way to put it. I think Lucas might have misjudged your involvement in all this. He should have been more careful about who he trusted with the details. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I asked, my voice betraying my sudden nervousness. Before he could answer, the safe clicked open, and the man pulled out a small, nondescript device wrapped in black cloth. He set it carefully on the desk, his eyes now gleaming with something unsettling. Do you know what this is? He asked. I stared at the object in front of me. It was nothing special to look at, just a plain box with a series of wires sticking out from it. But the man's expression had shifted, and now I felt a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. No, I whispered. I don't. This, Ethan, he said slowly, is a prototype for something that could change everything. And now, you're involved. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. My mind raced. How had I gotten tangled in whatever this was? I thought back to the office, to Lucas and the cryptic way he'd given me this task. Something was horribly off. Listen, I don't know what's going on, but I'm just a delivery guy, I said, taking a step back. I'm not supposed to be mixed up in any of this. The man's eyes narrowed. You've already been mixed up in it, whether you like it or not, and now there's no going back. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Whatever this was, I was in deeper than I realized. As I turned to leave, I heard the sound of a door creaking open behind me. I spun around, heart racing, only to find Lucas standing in the doorway, his face pale and drawn. Ethan, he didn't mean for any of this to happen, he stammered, his voice low. You shouldn't have come here. I was trying to protect you. But before he could say another word, the man at the desk cut him off. It's too late for that, Lucas. You should have known better than to involve someone like him. I glanced between the two men, my mind swirling. What had Lucas gotten me into, and why had he kept me in the dark? Lucas, what is all this? I demanded, my voice shaking with the mix of fear and confusion. But Lucas just shook his head, his eyes full of regret. You don't want to know, Ethan. Trust me. Before I could respond, a loud noise echoed from the far end of the warehouse, and a group of men dressed in black appeared, moving quickly toward us. My heart skipped again. This was no ordinary delivery anymore. This was something bigger, something dangerous, and now I was part of it. The men in black moved with the precision of a well-rehearsed team, their expressions cold and unreadable as they marched toward us. It was clear that they weren't here to chat. I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on me, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be truly out of your depth. Lucas, what's going on? I asked again, my voice more desperate now. Why didn't you tell me any of this? Lucas didn't answer right away. Instead, he took a deep breath and stepped toward the desk, standing in front of the man who had spoken to me earlier. His gaze flickered between me and the approaching group of men, and then he turned back to the desk, his eyes filled with regret. I had no choice, Lucas muttered almost to himself. They threatened my family. I didn't know what else to do. My stomach dropped at the mention of his family. Lucas wasn't the type to make threats real. He was usually the calmest person in any room, but now I could see the fear in his eyes. And suddenly, I didn't feel like I was just an innocent bystander anymore. This wasn't some simple office errand gone wrong. No, something much darker was unfolding around me. The men in black stopped about 10 feet away, their leader, a tall, thin man with an unsettlingly calm demeanor, gave me a long, appraising look. His sharp eyes seemed to pierce through me, as if reading something I couldn't even understand. He then turned to Lucas, his voice smooth but edged with a menace that made my blood run cold. You brought him here, Lucas. You were told to keep it quiet. Lucas began, but the man held up a hand, silencing him instantly. I don't want to hear your excuses, the man said coldly. You know the consequences of failure. At that, Lucas flinched, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The implications were clear. This was bigger than I could have imagined. I looked down at the package on the desk, now feeling like it held the weight of the world. The man glanced at it as well, then turned back to me with a gaze that made my skin crawl. You, Ethan Rivera, are not just a delivery boy anymore, the man said. You're involved, whether you want to be or not. My pulse quickened. I don't want any part of this. I was just doing a favor for Lucas. I don't know anything about what's going on. The man's eyes hardened. Too bad, he said, almost bored now. You've already seen too much. And in this world, once you've seen something, there's no going back. The weight of his words sank in. I had no idea what I was involved in, but it was clear that I was in deep. There was no way out now. Lucas stepped forward, his voice tight with desperation. Please, don't hurt him. He doesn't know anything. I swear, Ethan doesn't deserve this. The man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned to his team and nodded. Two of the men moved forward, their eyes trained on me, their movements unnervingly swift. Wait, I exclaimed, stepping back instinctively. If I don't know anything, why can't I just go? I can forget everything. You can let me go. But the leader merely smirked, his lips curling into a cruel smile. If only it were that simple. Before I could react, one of the men grabbed my arm. His grip was firm, almost painful, and I fought to pull away. "Let go of me!" I shouted, but it was no use. My mind raced for an escape, but there was nowhere to run. The warehouse stretched out around us, cold and imposing, and the walls felt like they were closing in on me. The leader motioned for the man holding me to bring me closer. Reluctantly, I stumbled forward. "You don't understand, do you?" the leader said. "This isn't just about a package. It's about control. This device," he pointed to the black cloth-wrapped object on the desk, "is the key to something far larger than your tiny office job." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "You don't know what you're talking about," I stammered. "I was just supposed to drop it off. That's all I know." "Too bad," he repeated, a dark gleam in his eyes. "You'll learn soon enough, and by then there will be no turning back." I felt a chill run through me, but it wasn't just from fear. It was something deeper, something more instinctive. Whatever was in that device, whatever Lucas had gotten me involved in, it was dangerous. And the people surrounding me weren't just criminals. They were playing a game I didn't even understand. Just then, another voice echoed from the far corner of the room, making everyone freeze. The head of security for the company I worked for. She wasn't just any employee, she was also an old friend of mine. I hadn't seen her in years, but she had always been sharp, resourceful, and fearless. Seeing her here, in this strange, dangerous situation, was both a relief and a worry. "What are you doing here?" I asked, still struggling against the man holding me. Claire's gaze was hard as she locked eyes with the leader of the group. "You don't need him," she said firmly, her stance unyielding. "Let him go." The leader studied her for a long moment, but something in her voice must have made him pause, because he waved his hand dismissively. The man holding me released his grip, and I staggered back, rubbing my wrist where his fingers had been. Clara stepped forward, her eyes briefly flicking to me before returning to the leader. "You think you can just waltz in and control everything? You don't get to dictate who lives and who dies. This ends today." There was a moment of silence before the leader's eyes darkened, and he slowly nodded. "You think you can stop me?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. But Clara didn't flinch. "I don't need to stop you," she said, her voice steady. "I just need to make sure you don't get what you want." Without warning, the lights in the warehouse suddenly flickered, and the hum of the equipment died down. It wasn't just the power. Almost electric. The leader's face tightened. "What is this?" Clara smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was a smile full of resolve, full of danger. "That would be your problem now." Before anyone could react, the sound of sirens began to wail in the distance, growing louder and louder. The leader's expression shifted from calm to frantic. He turned to his men, but it was already too late. The security team Clara had called had arrived, and the game had just changed completely. In that moment, I realized something. I had been playing a small part in a much bigger story, one that involved far more than just a delivery. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't just a bystander anymore. I was part of the story. And from now on, I would fight to understand how deep this rabbit hole went,